I remember one time my daughter asking me a very deep question. Why are we here? And that's a very honest question when we look around ourselves and our lives of the endless meals, the dishes, the laundry, the chores. Nothing ever seems to get finished, or when it does, it's just undone 5 minutes later. And you can start asking, you look around and go, why am I doing all this? Does it actually matter in the bigger scheme of things? That's what we're going to talk about today, because I think a lot of women ask themselves that question. What am I really doing here? Does it matter? That's what we're going to talk about. Hi, I'm Heidi Cooper, and this is the Biblical Planning for Women podcast, where we go right to scripture and look for biblical principles to help us plan better, to help us manage better, to help us steward what God has given us. That's what we do here. So let's go ahead and get started today. I want to talk about why your work at home has a purpose, why it matters. And I think a lot of women can wonder sometimes. I know I do sometimes when things just, like it seems like men will work on a project and then that project is finished and then they go on to the next one. Whereas in our world, we do the same things over and over again. And it can feel frustrating and like nothing means anything because it's just going to get undone. When you pay bills only to have to pay them again next month, when you are cleaning the bathroom, when you're trying to grow spiritually, you're feeling behind, it seems like an uphill climb sometimes, and I can understand why it would feel frustrating at times. And it can feel like, everyone else is doing something that just is life-changing and really having impact, and we just start on repeat every morning. But I do want to encourage you, there is so much more meaning to what we do than what the world wants to tell us. And I remember asking this question to myself. And when I really looked at scripture and I looked at particularly what Torah teaches us and how what the Bible teaches is different from what the world teaches, we were created to make the world around us a better place, a more beautiful place, create order out of the chaos, and help the people around us to flourish and bloom. We were created to love our Creator, to serve others, to bear one another's burdens, to make beauty, to create beauty around us, and to reflect God's image in our homes and in our families and in our community. That's a big deal, because if you look at like evolutionary thinking that we've just evolved from apes or primordial slime, there's no meaning there. But when we were created in God's image with a purpose and a design, and we are to take where we are and our circumstances and create beauty out of that, bloom where we are planted, as it were, that helps at least me to feel so much more purposeful in what I do. When I take the time to tidy up a room and make it look comfortable and nice, I have created beauty. I've lifted us up out of just, here's food and we're warm. We are meant to do more than just barely survive. We are meant to lift our existence and create beauty out of it. One of the verses I want to share with you today is Galatians chapter 6, verse 2. And it says, of course, it's a gloomy day today, and so it's hard to see, bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. So not only are we to create beauty and lift up above just, hunting and gathering kind of existence, but we are to lift each other up and build each other up and encourage each other. That is something that is far beyond just base existence. And living biblically helps us to come up above that survival line, as it were. Another verse that I want to share with you today is found in John chapter 10. Let me just take a minute to get there. I like to read the verses to you right out of my Bible. John chapter 10 and verse 10. And it says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." And to me, this is the key mindset shift that we need to have. Satan wants to tear everything down and destroy and kill, whereas Yeshua, our Messiah, he came so that we could have abundant life. And that is the whole idea that I want, that vision I want you to grasp, is that when we live by biblical principles and we do our best to live in a way that we reflect the character of God, we are creating abundant life around us. When we pick flowers to put on the table, that's not required, but it brings beauty. It lifts us up above that baseline that atheism and evolutionary thinking, it's like just we're just feeding ourselves, and yeah wants so much more for us than that. And us as women, we are perfectly designed to bring that extra, that abundant life to ourselves and our family and our community around us. That is what we are called to do. And that is why doing the dishes and the laundry and fixing healthy, tasteful meals for our family is so important. We are the ones that bring that abundant life to us and those around us. That is what we are called to do, and it's important. I don't know if any of you are of the same generation as me, but I am an Anne of Green Gables girl through and through. In fact, my wedding dress had to have puffed sleeves. Anne of Green Gables, that movie, I read all the books too, but the first movie, I loved to just look at Marilla's house, Green Gables. The way she kept it was just, oh, if you really look, she had her tea kettle just in the right spot. Her tomatoes were all lined up, tied to their stakes. Everything was so beautiful. And the tea was ready. She had bread baking. Someone came in to visit, and, usually it was Rachel, with an earful, but she had tea ready for her. She had a little treat for her. And she was always just so calm, and you only ever see her lose her temper like once, like her entire life. But she brought that calm and that order and that beauty to her home that just was something I aspire to. I don't think I've actually arrived. My house has never looked as good as Green Gables because, I've got 7 children and it's just not the same situation. But I can still do my best to make my home a place of beauty and comfort for my family. Again, that opportunity that we have to bring our family up out of just a hunter-gatherer existence where everybody just grabs a meal and, goes this way and that, but a central hub where everyone is at home and comfortable and enjoys being there. It doesn't have to be perfect, and mine certainly is not. But it should be a place where we want to be, where we're comfortable, where we feel creative, where we feel at peace. And again, that is something that we as women are perfectly designed by our Creator to do. We have it in us. We just understand the assignment. And even if we don't do it perfectly or as nicely as we would like, and I'm not talking Pinterest or home and garden kind of stuff. I'm talking just doing what we can to level up and bring that abundance and that beauty into our homes and our families. And all that to say, I am going to be starting a new kind of mini series on the podcast here, and that is my introduction. But I recall being in that place where I was just feeling like, why am I here? And what does the Bible even have to say to women? It all felt so very man-centered, where men are out there and, conquering and doing their thing. And it's like, what is in there for us women? What are we supposed to be doing? And I remember praying and just asking, yeah, where should I read? Guide me. I need direction. I need help as a wife and mother as to what I'm supposed to be doing and what the Bible has for me. And he actually led me to a very surprising place. And that was the book of Nehemiah, believe it or not. And I know at first glance it's about Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and there's enemies, there's conflict, there's swords, there's all this, and it seems like, what does this have to say about women? But as I looked more closely, I realized it addresses discouragement, having a vision, rebuilding, being persistent, having community work together. These are all things that we as women, we can relate to. And so I want to just encourage you, before I get really into this whole series, I'm going to be walking you through the book of Nehemiah with lots of practical application for your home and for planning and all of those things. And it's all going to be from the book of Nehemiah. So before we really step into that, I'm just kind of laying the groundwork today. We're laying the groundwork talking about Nehemiah. That's great. I would encourage you over the next week or so, if you are able, to go ahead and read the book of Nehemiah, just so you have an understanding of the storyline and what we'll be looking at. And I just want to give you a heads up. There are a lot of lists and names in the book of Nehemiah, but I just want you to remember that these are real people and these are their records. This is who did what, and they're giving people credit. And it's beautiful in that way when we realize that, yeah, we maybe can't pronounce their names, but those were real people who lived through these events and they contributed, they did their part to help rebuild that wall. And it's recorded so that how many thousands of years later, we can see their names and realize they did this. They built that wall. And that's incredible. So I want to just encourage you to see if you can get through the book of Nehemiah. My husband and I have been reading it over coffee recently, kind of revisiting it. So just to get yourself familiar with what happens in the book of Nehemiah. And then over the next few weeks in the podcast, I'm going to be walking you through how it applies to us as women and how we are building our homes. So I also want to just leave you with some questions to ponder as we are approaching the book of Nehemiah. And I want to ask you first, when Nehemiah started, he found out that the walls of Jerusalem were all broken down. They were completely vulnerable. And I want you to just ask yourself, what part of your home feels broken right now? Is it the meals? Is it that you feel like we're not really building up our children spiritually? Is it clutter that's overwhelming you? Is it your homeschool rhythms? Is it your own spiritual life? Because let me tell you, that is easy to ignore. And I want you to just kind of think through, what is it that feels most broken in your home? And also, I want to remind you that Nehemiah did not rebuild Jerusalem in a day. It actually took him 52 days. Spoiler alert. You do not have to rebuild everything this week. We're going to just be working systematically, one thing at a time. And I just want you to be pondering where God may be leading you to start as we look at kind of rebuilding these broken areas in our own homes. So just think, what work do I do regularly that feels unnoticed, where you're feeling like, where is the meaning here? And I want you to pray and be asking God to help you see that work differently. Help him to shift your perspective on how maybe he sees that work, and ask him to show you the value in it. And then again, ask yourself, what is one small area that I feel is broken down in my home and maybe needs to be rebuilt? So just be pondering those things as we are going to start this look at Nehemiah. And I just want to leave you with a couple encouraging thoughts. Let's start by looking at Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, because Scripture is the best encouragement I can ever leave you with. Galatians chapter 6, let's take a look at verse 9. And it says, there it is, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And just keep reminding yourself as we go through this next week, those healthy meals that you prepare, it matters. That bedtime story that you were able to read to your children, it matters. The clean laundry that they're able to put on their bodies, it matters. The conversation you had around the dinner table, it matters. And those prayers that you whisper over your children, even if it's just one sentence, It matters because you are building something. And it's not just a pile of dirty laundry. You're not just building a house. You are building a home that your children, that your husband are growing in. And you are bringing them that beauty and that creativity and that abundance with the things that you do every day. They may not even realize, they may not see it, and they probably won't. But I want you to see it the way God sees it. You are building a home that your family can thrive in. And all those little things work together and they matter. All right. I will just close there and go read Nehemiah this week. And if you need a little more help with planning tips and you'd like something that you can look at and read, I do have a free ebook for you called Planning with Purpose. I'll put a link in the description for you to download that. And we will see you next time.